We
You have it
were,
on here.
hmm, I got on several.
Oh, okay.
I did so because I'm making an announcement tonight.
Got it.
Yeah. And so we just wanted to share. We definitely came through the storm. We are grateful that we made it through the storm. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend that we are here since we. Sorry. That we are here. That we made it through the storm. We have power, so we were able to go live tonight. We weren't sure if we were going to do that. Our power was out for a little bit, and we're just so glad that we could be here with you on tonight. We kind of had to set up post hastily a little bit, but we are glad to be here with you on tonight. We're going to be talking about something. We're going to be unpacking the topic of identity in marriage. Who am I in us?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I in us? And contrary to popular belief, I think that both men and women at different points in the marriage or throughout the marriage struggle with identity, who they are within that. And so we want to definitely hit that on tonight and dive into that as a topic and maybe reflect on times that we have found ourselves in that identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's a few different identity crises that maybe even happen in marriage. And I think some of it
Mm-hmm.
uh-oh, is probably, the identity crisis that we might have related to um, what is marriage? Like, what are we really doing here?
Right.
Um, and then I think there's the identity crisis of, who am I, like as an
As an
individual,
individual, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
right? And
Yeah.
then not only who am I as an individual, but who am I in this particular role or space or place in marriage. And so, kind of wanted to hit on that tonight. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, feel free to drop those down in the comment section. We are happy to
Yeah.
pop those up or answer those questions if they do pop up. So if you see me leaning forward and look like this, I'm reading. Just so you know, one quick announcement: we are going live from 3 locations tonight. We are going live from our YouTube channel, which is Late Night Marriage with the Riches. You can go there now.
Right. And
Uh,
if you have not gone there, liked, and subscribed, please do so now.
please do so now. Yes, go to our YouTube channel, look for Late Night Marriage with the Riches, find us, or Late Night Marriage. You should see our logo somewhere there emblazoned. Like, subscribe, and share our YouTube channel because we are going to slowly start migrating more to producing more content for YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But we also will live stream on um, our Facebook page, our Marriage Refresh Facebook page,
Mm-hmm.
so you can also catch us there. Tonight, I am streaming on my own personal page as well, which that's not something we're going to continue to do, but wanted to get that out there because it is something that we used to do, and people may be looking there. That's where we do a lot of our notifications and letting you know what we're doing. Put that there. You want to stick around to the very end because we have some exciting announcements coming up. You will see some stuff come out tomorrow, and you are going to want to sign up and enjoy this thing and enjoy and sign up and get a hold of some of the stuff that we're going to be doing here coming up. But to that effect,
Mm-hmm.
another place that you can watch, if you know someone who's not really on social media, but you think that they would enjoy tuning in to Late Night Marriage with the Riches, then you can send them to www.therichdynasty, www.therichdynasty. They can go over there and they'll see at the top, they'll see Rich Dynasty Network. That is where you can catch all of our different YouTube and streamings. You'll catch Damon Rich Speak over there. You're going to catch Tamika Rich Styles over there. You'll probably even catch our ministry. UC Life, although UC Life has its own distinct channel.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, you can also go there. So if you know people who are not into social media, they can absolutely, or they have a tough time navigating, you can go to www.therichdynasty.com, click on the Rich Dynasty Network, and you will be able to see all of our YouTube channels there embedded in our site. So let's get into it. All right. I brought my robe. Then it's a little hot, so I ain't put my robe on.
To you, it's a little nippy.
Oh, it's a little hot. So, I was having this conversation the other day, and I actually had it twice with two different people. And what I was sharing was that just looking at us as just men and women, just don't even get into marriage yet, but looking at us as men and women. As men and women, we have our own struggles with identity, right? And because we have our own struggles with identity, we have to stop and think about, well, what are those just natural struggles that we have with identity, just as a man and woman, before you even get into marriage. And so men, and I'm gonna see if you agree with this about women, but this is what my observation has been. Men have a tendency to tie their identity to what we do, right? That's who we are. We become what we do. Women have a tendency to tie their identity to who they serve.
Okay.
Right? So men.
Because I was going to say what we do, but it is what we do is who we serve.
Is who we serve, right? The children, I'm the wife, I'm the mother, I'm the daughter.
Right.
And women tend to tie themselves or their identity more to who they serve. Men tend to tie their identity more to what they do, right? So already knowing that, that's a challenge. Bringing into the marriage that identity complex or issue. So now I get into the marriage and I'm a husband. And so being a husband, I'm going to do being a husband. I'm not even thinking about who I serve as a husband, what I do as a husband. As a husband, I'm the provider. As a husband, I'm the disciplinarian. As a husband, right, I'm the protector. So it's all about what I do, and it completely misses who I am. Right? And for women, I think it just adds another layer of who I serve, right? Because if I was a daughter before that, now I'm a mother, and I'm a wife, and I'm a church member, and I'm this, and it's all about who I serve, right? So
versus who I am first, and then who I serve.
Yeah, because who I am should enhance what I do. Who I am should enhance who I serve. It should not be the basis for how I exist. Right. So I just want to talk about that and thinking, I was starting to think through our marriage journey. God continue to bless us, 25 years in October. Our marriage journey. In different identity crises that we may have had in the midst of that. So, set it up.
Yeah, go ahead and start.
Oh.
No, now I'm just thinking back through the years. Definitely identity crisis. For me, one, because we got married younger. And I'm not saying that's the truth.
No. It is the truth.
So there's a lot of things that I even didn't know about me, about myself, before I entered into marriage to be a wife, and then soon after mom, soon after mom. So I was putting all of my focus on serving and what I do. Well, you said do for men, but serving versus like who am I really at the core? What are my needs? What are my wants? And a lot of times we kind of put those things on the back burner, and it shows up later in burnout and resentment and bitterness, that we haven't taken the time to self care and to actually get to know who you are or I am as an individual. Mm-hmm. What are my wants or my needs? Trying to figure that out. When do they change? I might have liked this, then I don't like it anymore, or I don't want to do it anymore. And all of those things to sometimes, for me, and I know a lot of women when we talk about feeling guilty, mm-hmm. Sometimes of just taking a minute for yourself, mm-hmm. or taking time for myself to figure out these things. We think we have to be doing or serving. And so it's like, oh, I can't take out a day or a few minutes out of a day to actually figure out who I am today or what I want to do today. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I look at, because I know the conversation that we've had around young marriage, and mm-hmm. when we had the Broxtons on, they talked about and shared their story about young marriage. Right. And so I was sitting there, and the reason I look at that is like, yeah, at the age we got married, who knows what they think they know, but then I'm kind of wondering, like, how long does it really take us to get to know ourselves? And then once we get married, mm-hmm. Marriage brings out a different part of you that you still have to explore, mm-hmm. that is otherwise dormant, even if you've had the most serious of serious relationships. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer that marriage brings out of you some things that even in just regular stuff you really didn't think about. Like, right. You didn't really have to look at from a certain perspective when you're young. So how old is too old? Because
a lot of things.
Yeah. So in a group of men that I hang around, and other conversations I've had with guys, men have this particular thought about marrying young. This is a little bit off topic. Is that if a man is not married by his 30s, then he probably will not get married until he's in his 40s. And I don't know, and that seems to play out a little bit true. Mm-hmm. And I don't. We've dug into various reasons around the brothers talking about that, right. Of why that is. But it's kind of like I would say for me, I wanted to build young, mm-hmm. as opposed to, and it definitely in this day and age, and we've talked about this. If I found myself on the market again, I don't know that it would have to be, I'll need Gabriel to come down and say this is the wife or something, because I just like, okay, I already have built it, mm-hmm. right? Versus what I'm building, I know I'm building with you, and you was there when we, had beat up Chevy, and when we had this and that, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And those type of things. I don't know where that person's headspace is going to really be at, like in terms of their motivation or whatever. Right. Those type of things. But getting back on topic, is like that age factor. Yes, it's important because of a lot of things, but I also mm-hmm. think about it from a man's perspective too. Is at 18 we have to sign up for selective service. So that means if a war pops off, right, we gotta go, mm-hmm. right? We don't matter our age, maturity, or whatever. You gotta go. Yeah. If a draft happens, you gotta go. And think about those type of things. Like, there's just certain things that we have to do. But yeah, at a young age, there are, depending on how you came up, there are a lot of things you don't know about yourself. Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. Yeah. Because a lot of times, this is the thing growing up, when your parents are training you, rearing you up, you kind of go by their system. That's the guide. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of things, they are guiding you, and they're not wrong. Definitely if they're guiding you in the right way as a parent, but it usually comes from their structure of upbringing. Mm-hmm. Because I always say you are a product of your environment, and so they're pouring into you the things that they think are right for you by the way one, they've been raised and they agree, or two, the way they didn't like the way they was raised, and so they change altogether. Practices of how I want to guide or raise my child, and so then you're kind of instilled with, and it's a little different, I think, today, definitely for us. But in my day or back then,
in my day,
right, like I'm really old, right? About, you should do this or you should be this, and all of these things, and parents do see personalities and qualities and things in their child. You'd be like, I think they would be good at this, or I think you would be good at that, and sometimes suggest versus just say you need to do this or you need to be this. And I think a lot of times because they have that voice, and it depends on and the vote, how it comes across for the child to take. It's like, well, my mom said I need to do this, or my dad said I needed to be this or do this. And so a lot of times you get to be an adult on all of those things. And so then when you start to navigate adulthood, you are supposed to come into finding out who I really am. Right. And what do I really want to do? And if we're doing it the right way, teaching them or bringing them up in Christ, them searching for their own purpose in life. What has God purposed me here on earth to do and to be, and all of those things. So that's what happens a lot. And so when you get married young, and I have changed my stance on getting married younger, thinking I was too young. But I do think there are things that I know that there are things that I would have done differently prior to getting married at that age. And we've talked about that.
What are? Too. Well, maybe that's a different time. Maybe that's a different episode. That's a different one. Because I was reflecting on that recently. Like, I want to do a video about like 3 things I wish I'd known before I got married. That I feel would have prepared me for marriage, type of thing. And I do want you to go because maybe everybody hasn't heard us talk about the voice and the vote. I know it's a little off topic, but explain the voice and the vote when it comes to kids.
So when it comes to children, I always say they get a voice, they don't get a vote. And so I know a lot of times for me, I didn't really get the voice coming up. And so I definitely wanted to change. That was one of the things that I wanted to change. I'm thankful for my the foundation that I got growing up. But I wanted our children to actually have a voice. But not necessarily the vote. We make the vote. But hear them out. Right. Let's hear their side of the story. And so for us, we didn't get to express that or have a voice. And so that's just one of the things that hinders us in our adulthood, or that's an issue that we need to go back and unpack or address in therapy, counsel, whatever it may be. And then you don't really know it. And if you get married at any age without addressing it, then that issue comes up. It's brushed against, because you start to feel like I'm not heard. I don't have a voice. I've been taken for granted, Yeah. And so, and that was one of my things.
Yeah. And I think that in elaborating on that a little more is like that voice and the vote actually teaches your children how to self-advocate against or within authority, right? So I think one of the best things our parents probably taught us, and one of the worst things our parents taught us, is the blessing and the curse, is they taught us to be respectful for authority. All right, that's the blessing. But the curse was they didn't teach us how to push back against authority because we weren't allowed. Don't you? That's an adult. Right. And whatever an adult said,
they were always right.
The adult was always right, even if the adult was lying. My brother's granddad, Mr. Peck, he said, well, you tell them, well, that's what they said. They got a tongue, they can lie too. Mr. Peck would tell us that. They got a tongue, they can lie too. And that's real, right? They got a tongue, they can lie too. So that adult can lie on a child, and the adult knowing that their word is going to be taken over or whatever. It's like, so we want to teach our kids like how to self-advocate. So you get a voice, but you don't get a vote. On a simple level is, hey, where do y'all want to do vacation at, right? Mm-hmm. They can have a voice all day long. They ain't got no money, they don't get the vote, right? So these are some options. You give us some ideas of things that y'all like to do.
Going out to eat,
right?
Y'all want to eat? What do you have a taste for?
Yeah, and they get a voice, but they don't necessarily get a vote in that regard. But on even more serious things, you may like say to a certain degree, well, what do you think your punishment should be? You get a voice, but you don't necessarily get a vote, right? Because if you say something silly, then you're probably not going to get anything right. So that is like one of those things that that voice and vote. I just wanted you to elaborate on it because I know that's some of our. I've said that to some people and they're like, huh. And I think a lot more parents that if they gave their kids a voice, and if we were to start doing it maybe even a little earlier, if we gave our kids a voice, then I think they get stronger at self-advocacy.
For sure. And I just want to thank the person who actually gave me that. That is not original. Her name is Amanda Laudadio. Some years back, and she just dropped that nugget. I loved it. I took it. I ran with it, and it made a difference from day one when we started.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, that is something to think about.
Yeah, because I think that definitely hearing our kids out. I think as a parent, my greatest anxiety is have I equipped my children well enough to advocate for themselves, right? And one of my sayings that I often say to people is, parents, is listen, our children weren't made in the fires we were born in, right? Our children were not made in the fire we were born in. So, and nor were we made in the fire that birthed our parents, and nor were they made in the fire that birthed their parents. So each generation, you kind of to a certain degree coddle more because the fire is different and it may not be intentional, but our kids didn't grow up just in you go outside and I'll see you when before the lights come on and you just basically got to fend for yourself all day long.
You drink water from the
water hose. Yeah, and the water hose is warm, so you had to let it run a little bit to get cool. So you know what I'm saying? So our kids weren't raised in that same fire, so we have to consider that because as I get tickled when I see some of the I think it's the Gen X videos. Thinking about because I think we're Gen X, I believe, something like that. But it's like y'all don't understand. We was latchkey kids having a brown meat, like do all these things. Our level of self-sufficiency coming up was completely different than what these kids face today. But they have to be self-sufficient in a different way. Like for example, with homework, some of the homework they bring home, I'm smart, I ain't that smart. I can figure it out. I can help my son, but help my daughter. It depends on the subject. I can help them out, but it just depends on the subject.
Right. Yeah, that new age math and stuff is not for me.
Yeah, dumb math. Dumb math. I got to take 25 steps to get to 10 plus 10. And that just ain't going to work. My child going to fail if I tell him because I'm going to say to the teacher through my child, are you stupid or are you dumb? And just... Anyway.
Right. But I was gonna say, actually letting them have that voice helps create that identity. Because they're thinking, they know they're voicing their opinion, and it comes from them. So this is kind of who I am, or this is how I think.
Right.
Yeah. So it does help definitely giving them a voice with the start of identity.
Yeah, and that is a good start of identity. Because one of the things, and this is again off topic, because we're talking about the kids, is I was thinking about this, and I've made the video a couple of different times. I still hadn't put it out, but it's like, what are we raising our children for? And I want y'all to think about that. You can drop in the comments if you have a thought. What am I raising my children for? Right? What am I raising them for?
Right.
And if you think about how we were raised, right? We were raised with a mindset and a mentality of you're going to go to school, you're going to graduate from high school, right? Because some of our parents didn't get that opportunity, so that was a real big focus of them. College ain't even really in the discussion. You know, my parents didn't talk to me about college. They didn't say I couldn't, but they didn't talk to me about college.
Right.
And I fell in that window where, or that space where they made too much for me to get a grant or anything like that. So it just is a lot that went with that. So you start thinking about like the college aspect, all of that. But we were raised to go finish high school and go get a good paying job.
Right.
And that might be working with the state at a low level job, but you making $20,000, $30,000. That's a good job. That's a good job, right? They looking at that number. Or if you making 40 or 50, man, you really doing good. Cause I can remember my mom at one time, which was really great. And one of my teachers, Mr. John Humble, said something to me. He said, or to our class, he said, you will never live at the level that your parents live at. Right? Now, that's not necessarily true. And I think he may have expanded on it. But what he meant by that is it will take more money for you to live. So what your parents can do with 50 grand is going to take you 100 grand to do. Right? Yeah. And that's really what he was trying to teach us about inflation and talk about that. And so I'm thinking about, like, my mom at one point is making $50,000, $60,000. Like, yeah, if I can make it to there. But now I'm at an age like $56,000.
Right.
That is a nice salary.
Right.
But it is, I want to raise my kids to go more than that. And for where I'm at and what I'm doing for family and these, I got to make more than that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. With the cost of everything, inflation and capitalism and all of the things. Yeah.
You got to do that, but it's really,
I'm not saying that it can't be done, but it is a little harder, and it is different from.
It is different, right? And so, what am I raising my kids for? And what hit me was, and I got a whole teaching on this I want to lay out, but what hit me was, we're raising our children for society. That's what we were taught. Teach your children how to be good, productive citizens of society. And there's nothing wrong with that. But really, I should be raising my children for purpose. And I got a whole scripture on that. A whole scripture of when I'm raising my kids, you can raise them for society to be good, upstanding members of society.
Right.
But the reality is I'm supposed to be raising them for purpose. Helping them discover and understand purpose in their life, right? So that they are rooted and grounded in God. And let me get that clear, godly purpose, so that they are rooted and grounded in what God has that, right? So it's what am I raising my family for? Let me see.
Yeah, and I think when you take that approach, that automatically covers identity. As you raising them for purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
Say when we coming down for the cookout. Let me know when it is. Let me know when it is. Yeah.
The cookout?
Yeah. We there.
Okay.
We there.
Yeah. We there.
But yeah, it's we really do like raising our family or whatever. But getting back into the whole aspect of like what our cousin John say, "What's up? What's up, cuz? What's up now?"
Hey, cousin.
So here's the thing. So getting back to identity, so I can think about at least one identity moment that rings with me as far as I like our marriage is, and this I don't know. It probably was an individual identity thing, but it was one of the times when you was getting frustrated and because you felt like I'm taking on all these things and what may have seemed insensitive, I'm like, but who asked you to do all that? But it was what your mom raised you to say, this is what a wife should do. Like you Sunday dinners and this and that. And I didn't grow up with any of that, right? I didn't grow up with any of that. Like Sunday dinners, my mom did cook some Sunday dinners on occasion. A lot of the people that I grew up with, they parent definitely cooked big Sunday meals, and a lot of times they just invited y'all come by for a plate, collard greens, and ham hocks, and all the stuff I ain't eat. I ain't eat soul food like that then. You got me to eating greens. You got me to eat oxtail. That stuff like I just didn't eat until, and you just got me to eating those within the last 5 to 10 years probably. So where I like them. Like, okay. Yeah, I eat that. I like it. You mean you just started, right? So, what I look at is, so we had that moment. I was like, babe, and this literally, I grew up under a father who, if my mama got off from work, she like, I'm gonna just cook some hot dogs and hamburgers and potato chips or French fries, and that was it. My dad was excited about that. Yeah, I'm getting a home cooked meal. We ain't going out. It is like hamburger, hot dog. So I was really raised by a man that was very simple in what pleased him. Right. My mom did cook some of the, like, one of my favorite meals from my mom was pepper steak and rice. Right, and she'll cook that or whatever, and my dad would enjoy that. Spaghetti with sausage in it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not talking about ground sausage. I'm talking about she did it with the sausage in it, and like cut up smoked sausage, Georgia best, right? And she would do that right there, and like we in hog heaven. You know what I'm saying? So I grew up really, really, really simple, and I didn't require all of that. But you had a different upbringing, right? That maybe it created a level of identity. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
It did, or actually, I guess, mess with the identity, because from that part, for me, if I wasn't doing it like I was raised or told, this is how I should be doing it, and then it seemed like, or when you said we don't have to do it like that, or that wasn't one of your expectations. For me, I just thought it would be an overall expectation as a wife. That's what you came up thinking. Wife, your husband is going to expect this, and this is what you just do. Just like, and this is the low hanging fruit that we talk about a lot of times for men with the trash. We just assume he's going to take out the garbage. I'm going to give me a husband. He's going to take out the garbage, fill my car up with gas every week, wash it, do all of those things are outside things. Take care of the yard, the lawn, and all of those things. And so when you said that, and it's like, okay, do I stop doing this? And then for us, I think we just came up with our own thing.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. But for me, a part of the identity crisis is what was I gonna say? If not, then how am I supposed to do it? Or is there an issue or a problem with me? So it goes back to like me, and I immediately put it back on me.
Right.
And it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times our identity crisis is things that happen and we feel a certain way, and then we think it's something to do with who we are.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. As a person, and not just that service. So it was about the service, not about who I was as a person.
Yeah. And that's just stuff like, it wasn't important to me from that perspective. It's like, we gonna eat, okay, whatever it is. Now it's like certain stuff I didn't like, and that's just finding out, okay, what you like to eat, what you don't like to eat, or whatever, and different stuff like that. But other than that, for the most part, it's like, in this what I'm gonna eat, or this what I ain't gonna eat. You know what I'm saying? Like, or whatever. But having a huge Sunday meal and all this, even though I knew you was fully capable of all that, like that wasn't my thing. Like, that wasn't the important thing to me. Like, even my brother loved to cook. All of the men in my brother family, they just learned to cook, and all of them can throw down. I wasn't that dude. You know what I'm saying? If I do cook, I can do it with a recipe. I'm sure I could build up that proficiency if that was me. But it's like they just naturally cook. So he cooked big Sunday meals even to this day. And I'm like, bro, you good. I ain't cooking. Mm-hmm. Right. But that's what he grew up with, and that's his thing. Mm-hmm. And I just don't have, like, I didn't have the expectation, but it created a friction because it was an identity, maybe it's an identity conflict mm-hmm. we had, or expectations right. around it.
Right. And I think we have to learn the difference between the two. And I think that's what's a lot of people do, mix those things together. My identity with what I do or service, and then if it goes wrong or there is a conflict, then you immediately think back or throw it back to your identity or who you are as a person, and not just the service or what it was or what you did.
Right. Shirley Pye said, I gave my kids a voice, especially on this second time we all had a conversation and it helped. They didn't get a vote and still don't have a vote. Yeah. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that just that identity, I think kind of growing forward where I would say I had somewhat of an identity crisis was when we lost our first home. Like feeling like who I am as a man, you know, what am I, who am I, I'm less than this, that, and the other, and just trying to figure out those things and listening to not only the voices on my inside of my head, but even the voices on the outside, because a lot of times people will look at you as if they have not failed, right? And some of it was imaginary, some of it was real. I could feel that, like, oh, especially because that house was on your family's land and we lost the land, all this and that. It's like, who am I? And it just put a level of pressure and a fracturing that happened with me, as far as because it went all the way back to, and I had to figure this out, learn this out, and figure this out in therapy. It just put more weight on someone's shoulders who already thought that they weren't good enough. Right. And so now I'm having that reinforced by this failure, which sometimes just happens in life. Right. I knew when my parents filed a bankruptcy and they went through a bankruptcy or what have you, and this and that. And I'm like, man, because of the negative connotations that is ingrained in us, especially as African Americans, you don't do that, da da da. But our white counterparts and fellow white citizens use those tools to their advantage all the time. But we were taught it's shameful for us to do it. Instead, just keep struggling until you get out of it. Like, nah, but I just had.
So a lot of times we take failures and then kind of go down a rabbit hole. I think sometimes of this is a part of who I am, and so you make it your identity instead of just an issue of this is what it was, or this was a single incident. And so a lot of times as we go through life and life happens, because life is going life, we start to tie those things to our identity. Yeah. And it's hard to pull away from or change your thinking if you're not aware or if you don't get counsel or therapy to be like, no. And so all these years I thought I was this, or, I identify as this because of what I did or what I didn't do or how I failed in life.
Yeah. And that's one of the things is like, when it comes down to it is and you said, when you said it, yeah, I heard it like this, is there's a failing and being a failure are not the same thing. Right. Failing and being a failure are not the same things. Those are two completely different things. Right. And so just because I failed doesn't mean that I'm a failure. Right. I think I only become a failure when I stop trying. Right. I remember we was listening to, is her name Blakely, Sarah Blakely, the Spanx lady?
Yes.
Okay, the Spanx lady, Sarah Blakely, and she was talking about, and this is something that is also something that I think we need to think about with our kids. She said that her dad did not ask her what all went right in the day. Right. And I'm paraphrasing this, but he wanted to know like one way that she failed.
Right. What did you fail at today?
Yeah, what did you fail at today? And I love that approach because his mentality was, if you didn't fail at least one thing today, how hard did you try? Right? And I like that approach. Is I want you to try. I want you to push. I want you to be in those spots. Not that I want you to fail, but I want you to try. And if you fail, it is okay. Yeah. Now go back and take that failure, right? That failing moment, dissect it, see what you got wrong, and do it again, right? Until you get it right. Or you may learn through that failing moment that what you were trying to do is not something that you're suited for. Right. So that in itself is a big thing, because then you can check that off the list of things that you shouldn't be doing.
Right. I just like it because it changes the whole perspective. Because a lot of times, if you think back growing up young, if you failed at a lot of things, it was like you were a failure and you were called that. And so you was thinking like, oh, every time I tried something or I didn't get it right. And for me, maybe being an excellence. Which I am now, but the perfection, but having a perfectionist attitude, it was like, oh, if I don't get this right and I fail at it, I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna be a failure. And so then that goes back again to the identity. I grow up thinking I'm a failure because I tried this many things, or I didn't get it just right, or And so I think a lot of times that is what causes that identity crisis, or it definitely starts when we're younger. And I just wanted to go back to, what was it when Shirley was talking about her kids, and we were talking about voice versus vote. When we were younger, we were told you're seen and not heard.
That's it.
And so that's it. And so somewhere you have to break that that covenant, I call it. Some people may call it a curse. I call it a covenant. But you have to break that practice and start different. And so for us, let's break that practice, which I don't even think that was a thing for us. Not in the sense of I've ever told my children, even when they were younger, that you were seen and not heard.
Grown folks' business or whatever. We might have said that if they butted in somewhere they weren't. But one of the reasons, so I often get told, man, you have an old soul. And one of the reasons why is because I did get to hang around a lot of adults. I got to hear a lot of adult conversations. And so mentally processing things, I was able to process things at a much higher maturity level than most of my peers, because I got to hear adult conversations. So it's like it transformed the way I went. I want to just catch two comments, read them. Vertus say, totally agree that it is our goal to raise our kids for purpose, with the hope that they have a personal relationship with God and live a life filled with love, joy, and peace on this journey to accomplishing their dreams and goals, family, careers, finances, etc. And then Shirley say, identity and expectations are two different things. That's when fantasy world comes into play, because what we expect is different from what we identify, and understanding the difference. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sure. Yeah, I just think that, as at the end of the day, I tell people, when you turn off the lights and it's just you and God, who are you then? Right? Who, if I had to write down, and I'm going to give y'all a little bit of homework tonight, write down who you are. I want you to physically write it on paper. Who are you? Right? I'm tempted to scream at you like Auntie from Wakanda. Sure, remember who you are. It's hard to remember who you are if you don't. Yeah, Angela Bassett. Queen Rwanda, I think that's the name, Queen Rwanda, something like that. But from Black Panther. But I really want you to write it down, because I would suspect that when most of us start to write down who we are, you're going to find a lot about what you do. Mm-hmm. And I want you to get back to who you actually are, mm-hmm. right? Let me check this out. Jesus said, when he, like, who he is, mm-hmm. right? He is the word, mm-hmm. right? Wrapped in flesh. He is the sacrifice, mm-hmm. right? Who he is son of man, right? Mm-hmm. He's God personified in the flesh, or what have you. Like, really getting down to Alpha, Omega. No, yes. Like, that is who you are. Yeah. So really getting down to, like, who am I apart from what I do, mm-hmm. right? Who am I? Right. And I want you to write it down, because I want you to filter out all of the what you do.
Right. And sometimes it takes a minute because it's so hard, because once you immediately start writing, those are the things you start to do. It's like, who am I? Well, I'm a white, but outside of that, who are you really? Who has God purposed you to be? Who are you as an individual, as a person? And be honest with yourself. And then the thing about it is, if you aren't who you want to be at this moment, it's not too late. Yeah. To be who He's purposed you, call you to be, and who you want to be.
Yeah. And see, I'm thinking about it because I want to get a little clearer on the do part, right? Mm-hmm. Because part of really what boils down to, from a God perspective, who you are is the mission that you were sent to do. Mm-hmm. So there is that doing, right? But if everything that you do, or everyone that you serve, are at the core, if who you are is a list of titles, mm-hmm. and positions, then you got to dig deeper, mm-hmm. right? If I were, and I'm sitting here thinking, who is Damon? At the end of the day, I am purposed to be a people builder in a safe place for others to heal. I'm purposed to be a people builder in a safe place for others to heal. That is who I am.
Now let me ask you this, because we're talking about it in marriage. What are some of the things that, and we know this is an issue in marriage because we're talking about ours through the years, but what are some of the things that it causes in marriage when you are not sure about who you are, or that identity versus what you do?
I think that when your identity is so tied in what you do, and you hit on some words earlier, mm-hmm. it caused you to feel unappreciated, which is going to cause you to feel bitter, mm-hmm. which is going to cause you to have resentment, mm-hmm. which is going to have, because you're looking at what you do and how people that benefit from what you do are responding to what you do, mm-hmm. right? And that is going to be a challenge.
Right, because usually when you know who you are, outside of that, you don't take it as personal. And so in marriage, if we don't start to identify and work on those things, and this is the thing that individually, mm-hmm. then it is hard to the two to become one, which the marriage is supposed to be the two becoming one. It just makes us at each other all the time. We're always rubbing up against each other, not in the nicest of ways. So it's always a conflict, back and forth. And of course, that's what the enemy wants, because he hates unity and marriage. So a lot of times when people ask about prep for marriage, or things I should be doing, it is doing your individual work as a person. Yeah. To make you actually prepare as much as you can for marriage.
Yeah. I think that for me, thinking through who I am, or thinking about, or some of the challenges that it causes, is There was a number of years in our marriage, and I'm probably in some ways just breaking out of this within the last 2, 3 years, that I didn't feel like I could be fully me. Mm-hmm. Because when it gets down to like my core personality, I'm a very direct person. I'm not trying to, when I'm trying to hurt your feelings, you'll know it. But a lot of people still get offended and their feelings might get hurt. And they don't like when I'm trying to, there will be no doubt that I'm trying to hurt your feelings or I'm trying to offend you. There's zero doubt.
Right.
But I'm very straightforward. I'm super logical.
Super duper.
Yeah, you can add a duper on there. Like I'm very logical because it's how I've had to work life out. Mm-hmm. I've had to try to make sense of things that don't make sense. But I've also, in being super logical, it allows me to sit with my thoughts. So one of the things, and again, I'm an introvert, and people don't really understand what an introvert is. And so, one of the things about being an introvert, depending on the type of introvert you are, is you're very self aware and you're very reflective. So, I spend a lot of time with my thoughts and reflecting on me. Sometimes I'm very tough on me, tougher than I should be on me. And that has nothing to do with external people. But I also had some things where I didn't feel validated growing up as a child. Um, so I felt like I had these things to prove because I was told this is how you're gonna come out, and I'm like, I gotta prove you different. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm starting to somewhat, me and my dad in some ways were on the very same track around the very same age. Because when my auntie tells me like around the age he started hanging with the wrong crowds, this we were like on the very same path. And I think the only reason I escaped that path is because of the structure and foundation I had at home. Mm-hmm. But also, I had some friends who recognized me early. You're different from us,
right?
Like you're different, and I didn't embrace my inner nerd, or when I did, and that wasn't really received. I learned to be a chameleon, mm-hmm. right? So even in marriage for a number of years, I just never was me because I'm like, okay, I got to be what I'm supposed to be or what they say a husband's supposed to be, mm-hmm. instead of just being me. And in being me, I'm a different type of animal. And I'm not saying that in a bragging way or trying to be arrogant or whatever, but I'm a different type of animal, mm-hmm. when I'm in my full Damon zone. Right. And so, and what that caused is it's only so long that you can box a person in, mm-hmm. before it starts to affect them mentally. It starts to affect them emotionally. It starts to affect, because my natural thing is just shut down, just, which a lot of men deal with that.
Right.
Just shut down. Because I didn't have a voice or a vote growing up. Mm-hmm. And I didn't necessarily have that, like I said, that validation point, those type of things. And you bring all of that with you in the marriage. And you was just talking about doing your self work. That's one of the things, definitely, before you get married, mm-hmm. do your self work. Now, you're never going to come to the end of that road.
No.
But you need to have a firm road map,
right.
for the work you need to do and how to read other people into that work journey.
Right. And then having that voice, because a lot of the things, or some of the things that you were talking about, even for you being who you are naturally, for women a lot of times, or for me when that comes up, especially if it's tone, mm-hmm. and it's direct tone and it sounds a certain way, having a voice to have the conversation or communicate about it, mm-hmm. and how it makes you feel, versus just assuming something or taking it a certain way, or shutting down or not talking about it, and then just assume you are somebody who you're not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because naturally you're this, but this doesn't mean that you're a monster. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So sort of say, because a lot of times we talk women, and tone is definitely an issue with couples, and and it comes across a certain way. And for us or women, a lot of times, if we don't dissect it and see the heart of it and see exactly where it's coming from, because it can be coming from a bad place, but we immediately take it a lot of times like the wrong way.
Right.
Or make a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah.
You know, and so when you don't learn how to communicate, when you don't know who you are as a person, it just makes it so complicated in the relationship. And I think you lose years. Yeah, trying to figure all of these things out when you could start on it earlier or do the work earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you don't have to lose so many years trying to figure out things that should kind of already be figured out.
Right.
Yeah. Or if you know who you are, or if you're good in your identity.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. As much as you can. I always say that because there are no absolutes. And of course, if you do get, and it does depend on age sometimes when you do get married younger and you only know so much at certain ages.
You only know so much, but I think that it takes a while for the idealism to wear off and believing that you can power through most things with love.
Right.
I think it takes a while for that crap to wear off because I would tell you, I would look right into this camera and I will tell you, love is a dumb reason to get married. Dumb. Dumb reason to get married.
Right.
It's not, you need love, you need godly love in your marriage, but it is a dumb reason to initiate it.
Right. And when we say love, I think it goes back a lot of times because we, or people, when you immediately say love, thinking about the feeling of love and the romantic part of love. And so a lot of times that's the thing that gets people together, and they're so in love.
Eros. Yeah, we got Eros.
But, yeah. Completely oblivious to what love really is and what it's going to take to keep a relationship and a healthy marriage together.
Yeah, because think about this. If we go to love, and this is a whole nother topic, love and marriage, we need to talk about that. But I'm gonna give you this quick insight. Not the show. I did have that. What I said, I was like, oh, it's in my head, and then you sung it. Sin carrots. Yeah, no. So here's the thing about love. If you're God, oh my goodness, I can't wait to talk to y'all about, do you want a God-based marriage or a society-based marriage, and the difference between those two. I think we need to talk about that. But I want you to think about, particularly if you're God-oriented, what we say about God's love, right? We know it's unconditional. We know it includes mercy. We know it includes grace. But it also includes
truth.
It also includes truth. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to give the comprehensive picture. So we know it includes unconditional love. We know it includes grace. We know it includes mercy. That's where most people want to stop. But it includes truth, and where truth comes rebuke. Truth comes chastisement, right? And truth don't always feel good. Now, if you say you want to be loved by your spouse, and I want you to love me like Jesus loved the church, then understand that with Jesus' love comes grace and mercy and chastisement and rebuke and truth and all of that. All of that. So if you really want godly love, you got to understand that you got to allow your spouse to love you comprehensively. And that's going both ways.
Right.
You got to let them love you comprehensively, not just the warm and fuzzy parts that excuse your mistakes and don't hold you accountable.
Right.
God's love is accountable. Right? He loved David, but he let some atrocious things happen in David's family because of what David did. He loved Moses, but he said, Moses, I love you, but because you done cut the fool like this, I can't let you go into the promised land. Right? He loved Abraham, but he said, since y'all tried to help me out, you got to send Ishmael away because it's going to cause some other problems. He loved them, but he still held them accountable. Right?
Right.
So we have to know that if we want our spouses to love us, we have to be open to the full love if we want it like Christ does in church, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, identity, I think a lot of couples probably need to go to their corners, find out who they are in their marriages, mm-hmm. come back and talk about it. And I think that if they get into who they are, and they allow each other to be who they are.
Yeah, that's the most important
part. I think that their marriage will grow stronger, mm-hmm. because now we understand how our identities work in unison.
Right, because I think that's when you actually are given that grace that you're talking about, mm-hmm. and that mercy sometimes of being able to be vulnerable and be who you truly are. And so even and sometimes that's part of the covering too, of why you work that part out. I'm giving you that grace, mm-hmm. or that mercy to do so without judgment.
Yeah.
Necessarily, even if I don't like it or it's not my thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I wasn't that way, or I didn't come up this way or that way. And a lot of times, we are not cookie cutter individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been on here for a little over an hour. We're right at it. So we're gonna get ready to let y'all go. Listen, tomorrow, sometime tomorrow afternoon, you'll see it. We are going to post registration for a webinar that we're going to do, mm-hmm. and we're gonna focus on communication and marriage. And we're going to take you through a module that normally we reserve for pre-marriage education, mm-hmm. but we also do it within our marriage coaching sessions. We're going to give you some tips on how to communicate better in marriage, what communication looks like, mm-hmm. and we're going to share with you our every room in the house approach to communication, where we're going to take 5 rooms that you find in most houses, and how each one of those rooms represent different conversations that you need to have in your home.
Yes.
So listen.
It's a great communication builder.
Great communication builder. So look for that to register. Here's the thing about it. We are not live streaming it. The only way you're going to get in it is you're going to have to sign up for the webinar. You're going to have to come in. This is going to be up close and personal dialogue. We are not live streaming it. And if you register, you'll get an opportunity to ask us questions directly. We will have a question and answer period around the communication exercise itself. Mm-hmm. And then we will have an question and answer period, where if you just have any questions on marriage, if time permits. So that's what we're doing. We're going to have the date and the registration out there for you to be able to sign up with Late Night with the Riches. We're going to talk about rich communication. So listen, that's all we have for you tonight. I just realized that I did not plug this camera into the battery source, so I don't know when it might shut off. So we better get off of here before it kicks us off. You ain't got to go home, but you got to get up out of here. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Late Night Marriage with the Riches, where it is lights off, transparency on. That's how we do it.
Yes. Good night. And who are you?
Who are you in your marriage?
Who are you in your marriage and as an individual? That identity.
Go
do your homework.
Go do your homework. Write it down.
Love you for real.
Love you for real. God bless. Good night. Good night. Good night.